acknowledge you all. So please put your first and last name on the Zoom. We wanted to say hello. Finally, we were able to meet you. And for those of you that are new on this call, please put new in the chat and we wanted to welcome you.
And also mark our start the recording this one as well, so we have it.
It's already started.
Yep.
Perfect.
So who are new in this call tonight? Welcome, everyone. I see a lot
new?
of...
I know there's some new faces. I think I've seen a few new faces here. They may
wow,
be shocked.
everybody are OGs. Okay. We wanted to know where are you located. So if you can put in the chat, where are you calling from? Hello, Howard from Montana. Dees from Nevada. Hello. Richard, Austin.
Austin, my hometown.
Yeah.
We got a couple of people from Austin.
Hi, Scott. Pat from Indiana. Wow, we're everywhere.
Fort
Avis from
Myers,
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Charlottesville, Virginia. That is a great town.
Awesome. Arizona.
Love
Cool.
Arizona.
Nice. And how many people have come to our previous webinars?
Just put a yes in there if you've come to the previous webinar.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much for your support, guys. We really appreciate it. And we have more coming in. Thank you so much. Welcome back, guys. Thank you. So we are super excited about the part 3 cabbing series. It is all about finishing material with diamond resin wheel and polishing the cab. The same drill, you can raise your hand if you have some questions later.
Why don't you explain how to raise their hand?
Yeah, by going on through the reaction icon at the bottom of your Zoom and click raise hand. Or you can
you'll see like a little, you'll see an icon that has like a little smiley face on it. You
here, I'll demonstrate it. I'm going to click on it.
Hand.
Well, there you go. Sherman demonstrated. So now you can see in the top left-hand corner, Sherman has raised his hand.
Now, what's cool for this is when you do that, like there's multiple pages of you guys. So if we had one of our friends was raising their hand for 15 minutes on like the 4th page. And he says, my arm got tired. I had my hand up the whole time. And of course, we never saw it.
Right.
So use that reactions button to get able to raise and lower your hand right there.
Thank you so much, Sherm. Again, that's reaction icon and then click the virtual hand. Or you can also post your questions on the chat.
I got a question for somebody. Who's working on building their dream studio? I know some of you guys are working on building the dream studio for yourself. If you are, just put dream up in the chat. Or studio. Let's use studio. Let's do studio.
Building the dream.
Wow.
Yeah, Avis.
Wow, Lynn too. Merlinda
Richard.
Hill. Awesome.
Oh, Scott's almost got his done.
Scott.
Would love to see pictures, like, because one of the things is when you build a cool studio and you're doing it, other people really get inspired because they can see that it's possible. I mean, that's part of the thing. And when you're doing lapidary is it's one of those dreams and passions that sometimes people don't really understand cutting and polishing rocks. They don't get it. And when you build a real cool studio and then you're producing beautiful work, it really does inspire people to see that may be something that they love to do themselves, whether it's just a little hobby or whether they want to make some money.
Awesome. All right. Again, our guest speaker for tonight is no other than Russ Kaniuth, the owner of Sunset Ridge Lapidary Arts and also a writer for Rack and Gem magazine. For sure, tonight's going to be interactive and fun and full of gold nuggets. Of course, joining us too is our CEO, John Rowland, and General Manager, Sherman Rowland. So let's kick this off. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's Highland Park live webinar.
For tonight, Sunset Ridge Lapidary art owner, a writer for Rock and Gem magazines. So let's please welcome Russ Kaniuth.
All right. Always got a rockin' video going there, guys. Russ, it's great to see you again
Hey, guys.
on this fine Friday night.
So how's everyone doing?
Doing good here. How's everybody else doing there? How you doing over there in China, John?
Excellent.
Sore
Except
throat
it's going to
better?
get cold. It's going to get unbelievably cold for China. It's supposed to be 44 degrees the next couple of days. Now that doesn't seem much to the guys in Wisconsin and North Dakota and stuff. I know, but imagine if your only heater is a little tiny unit that blows like enough to heat an 8x8 room in like 4 hours.
I'll enjoy my mid 70s for you.
Yeah, well, we were like mid 70s all week, but it's dropping down here this next couple days. So
Yeah.
So listen, there was a bunch of new people or people building their studios. I want you to throw up that offer, Sherman. I wanted to put together an offer for people that have been attending our webinars that are trying to put together equipment and make some deals for them.
Why don't you pop up that slide,
and then we'll kick
John?
off our content.
So what we've done, a lot of people have been like, hey, I need to get a trim saw. I need to be able to, get some templates, the Dot Pro. So we put together a combination that together, this would be $693 for the saw, the Dot Pro, and the templates. We're basically discounting that almost $100. So you can get the combination of those. Just using that code HPLCAB3 or calling into the folks and they can get you hooked up. All that stuff we have in stock. I don't think we have every single template in stock. I think we may be missing one template, but that's both the metal templates as well as Don Olson's templates as well, the Great Shape templates. So you can choose whatever of the three templates that you want and the Dot Pro. So it's a great combination. We sell an unbelievable amount of those trim saws out, but we do have still probably 40 or so of them available. We'll probably move through those fairly quickly here in the next few weeks. So take advantage of that. That's a great way to get going. So you want to go ahead and start on into the polishing?
Yeah. So Russ, basically, we worked through and kind of decided how we would put the content together. So we have a lot of video for you tonight of Russ and his son, Ben, working on the machines, because I always believe that seeing something done is way, way, way better than talking about it being done or trying to read something about how it's done. So that's why we love video. So let's go ahead and start with the intro video, Markar.
Hey everyone, week 3 here. Ben and I are going to give a demonstration on doing stones from start to finish, but I'm going to do a few tricks that we've learned.
Increase that volume, Joanna.
That's little helps. Hopefully you can pick up on some that you may have not tried before and utilize it and see if it works for you. I'm going to do just a Mexican lace agate, and I'm going to utilize a silicon carbide belt on a self-expando, and then at the end I'm going to come over here and I'm going to finish my polish out with ceram oxide on a leather buff. Now Ben, he's going to use a Sonoran dendritic rhyolite. Rhyolites are a little bit different. There's several different variations that you can use. Apache rhyolite, sometimes even lapis if you go light enough, Norina. There's several different ones that act a little bit differently, and heat is a good way to polish them. So instead of going all the way through your wheels and end up on the 14,000 with the water going, keeping the stone cool, you actually want to just cab all the way up until the 600 and then kill the water, dry off the wheels, and then you're going to dry sand a polish into it. You know, some of the wheels even say don't run without water, but in this case you're going to see why and what a difference it does make.
All right, great. Go ahead to the next video, Mark.
All right, in this case I'm going to use a little piece of Laguna lace agate here. It's a little bit harder. Sometimes it can be a little bit on the difficult side to get some of the scratches out, or at least in a timely manner. So I'm going to knock this one out. I'm going to do a little bit of a freeform job and just do this one on the fly. I'm going to start out here on the 80. Now I got my shape down. I'm going to start and do the dome from here. There, I put my first facet on there. Got about a 3mm girdle all the way around, and now I'm going to start doming over the top. Alright, I've already got my shape down, everything's domed over, so I'm going to move on to the 60, and I'm going to smooth it all out from here. keep the tip down to the bottom, and I'll work from the top, and I'll swivel my way back up. Then I'll come back around on the edges and work my way to the center. And then just clean up the drill a little bit. And let's take a look at where we're at right here. I don't like using rags, they get wet too quick, so I always like to keep a can of air available. And as you can see, for the most part, it's the 60 actually picked up the majority of all the scratches that the 80 left. There's really not much, but I could go to the 140 and continue working and get them out, although I'll do a good amount of labor. I'm going to take a little shortcut, and I'm going to use the silicon carbide on self-expando. And you know, it works a little bit differently. It likes to grab the stone, so you got to be careful with that. But it'll smooth it out real quick and eliminate scratches in a hurry. You know, it is really smooth, and I like the fact that you got 3 inches to work with as well. And you know what? This is another reason why I like doing hand over dock, because I can essentially just do the backs right now and not have to wait till later. So let's see where we're at. I mean, that's pretty much dead on. There's no scratches. Great dome. It's actually already ready to go directly to the 280 and move on from there. So essentially I just skipped over the 140 and did all that essential work as well. Now, you want to put a little bit of a curve on your edges so that it's not a straight, you know, dead on straight edge. It makes it nice for jewelry designers to silversmith over. So you just want to lightly go over the edges, but don't put a lot of pressure because you don't want to knock it off. You just want to take the edge off because you've already got the angle there. You can see that now. So let's see where we're at. See, it's already starting to show polish there at the 280. So now I'm going to move on to the 600. 14,000, and that's usually where I finish up. Really well polished, but I can take it a step further. And we got the leather buff on the wheel here. And what we like to use is a little serum oxide with water. Now, most people, they will put it on with a brush. They'll spritz the wheel a little bit and apply the serum oxide. I might have people disagree with me, but keep a little serum oxide in water and a squirt bottle. We'll mix it up real quick because it always likes to separate. And we'll give it a couple spritz. And you want to, if the rotations go in this direction, you want to be over here. This is actually an easier process going up against a flat surface when you have a drop stick. So it can be a little challenging trying to, hold it and not let it get away from you. So kind of keep a gentle touch and just kind of hit every aspect of the surface that you're going. More of a mirror polish. Now this particular one has got some bugs on it, and I don't want to get too much compound in there, so I would have rather personally stopped at the 14,000 and not get any compound stuck in these bugs. And it's a nice looking cab, and it's got a nice polish going on it even from the 14,000, but yeah, you can get a little bit added extra hit it with some leather. Now, I'm going to let Ben show you what to do with some Sonoma dendritic rhyolite.
All right. Okay, Russ, you have to replace those bearings in that unit, dude. That's so noisy.
Yeah, at least twice a year I do.
Yeah. So, actually, it's a good time for us to try and catch up some of these questions. We have some questions that came up here in the chat. Let me see. Sandy Mooney wanted to know, how do you keep your fingernails intact?
Well,
I don't think he has fingernails.
Yeah, I don't have much. They're not going to go away.
This is why a lot of people like the DOPS. If you have big fingers like mine or like Russ's, you are going to be working on your fingernails. And then Rick asked a question here about end cuts that he wants to make cabs out of, and he doesn't have the best trim saw yet. So how do you think I can best get the rough side flat? Well, Russ, you may have some ideas about that. He's got a flat disc on the side, so he could put like a diamond lap on that to flatten the rough side. Do you have any other ideas about how he might accomplish that?
If he got the magnetic ones and stuck it on there, yeah, use an 80 or a 100. I used to do that too with the little tiny 8-inch flat lap. But essentially I use a trim saw. So
Yeah, trim saw is the best way, but
yeah.
um,
Somebody else was asking about the air. I think hobbyists, if you're only doing a couple cabs here and there and you're using a rag, that's great. I mean, it works, but when you're out there for 6 or 8 hours and you're doing 20 cabs in a row, rags tend to get wet real quick, and you're going through rag after rag. I found that just keeping that canned air up there, just a quick spray on it, you can see exactly, it dries it quick, so you can see exactly where you're at all times. And I just found it to be so much.
Say more about what you mean when you say so you can see where you're at. So some people don't. I don't think they understand why you're doing that.
So in between each step, especially like when you're going from the, really from the get-go with the 80, where it's leaving flat spots and it's leaving scratches, and then you move to the next grit. And by the time you're getting to the 280, you don't want to really leave that wheel with any scratches whatsoever that are showing, because you will not get them out with a 600 or onwards. So if you hit it with air, it's going to, when you dry it off, you're going to see those scratches. They're going to be very visible to you right there on the spot. When it's wet, the water's going to be filling in those crevices, so you won't visibly see it. So you want to continually dry it off all the way in between steps to see where you're at.
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing. Like, a lot of experienced cutters do this kind of automatically, but it's not something that I've ever really seen people talk about or teach about. And when I hear people that are talking about, like, I've got this cab, and they show a picture and there's some pretty bad scratches, that maybe part of what's missing for them in their process is drying it off and being able to look and see where they're at in each stage. So I think that's a great point. So somebody else asked, Simply Rock asked, what grit were you running on that expanding drum?
I only keep a couple different on hand depending on the material. The general one that Ben and I normally have available is a 220. So sometimes when you get a stubborn agate that likes to keep those little micro scratches, and instead of putting a lot of wheel wear on your diamond, which you want to keep in good condition at all times, instead of overworking it on one stone, the belts are cheap. It works really good, and it's actually really quick. So I like having it. It's not a needed necessity. It's just it's a nice little trick that we learned along the way. I wouldn't want to use silicon carbide belts on something that like chrysocola's or opals or rhyolites, because it does tend to heat up really quick. Even though you're running water on it, it builds up friction real quick. But with an agate or something, and you're just trying to get those surface scratches out real quick to go back to your 280, it's perfect. It works really well.
Nice.
That's great.
So Richard was asking a question. He said, I noticed you're doing the work on the bottom side of the cab. In other words, upside down. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. So maybe you speak to how you're actually working the cab, because the camera it's a little hard to get in close and see some really close detail. But talk a little bit about how you do that, because I know you do some cleanup on the backside of the cab, but your technique is a little bit hard to see in detail there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry about that. It is tough. We do run a lot of water on that typical machine, and it draws out a lot of mist. If you were to get the camera in there, I mean, you wouldn't see the camera any longer, because it would just fill up with water. So I've developed the habit of being able to really hold the girdle really tight, and I will swivel and keep it swiveling the whole time as I'm doing circles to the face. and I'm going all the way around at all times. I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'm actually, rocking it back and forth as I'm doing circles, constantly keeping the stone moving. And if I got something that has a point, I'll start it at the point and kind of work my way up as I'm swiveling the cab back and forth across the dome, ascending upwards. And then I'll turn the cab around and do it again. So I'll get all the way down the middle from edge to edge. And then, if somebody said about the back, at the same time, I generally use decent blades that don't leave a lot of saw marks. And it's pretty nice to start with. So I don't start the backs on like a 60. Sometimes I won't even do it on the 140. I'll wait till I get to the 280 and I'll flip it over, and at the flat and right dead smack in the middle of the wheel is, on a round surface, it's your flattest point.
Hey, guys, just get that recording going again. That's very good.
Okay. So being the fact that, you got a wheel a round shape, you're not going to get a flat spot on it. But if you get it right down the middle, that is your flattest area. So when I flip over the cab for the back, I will keep working it all the way around, turn it around, and still work it, keeping a very flat surface. You don't want to hold it long ways. If you do, you're going to start getting concave on the back, which is not good. But keep moving it to it always. And then, it doesn't take very long to do a flat surface. So it doesn't need to, really overdo it. And from the 280 on, once you work your front, just flip it over to the back, give it a little go, and go to the next wheel. By the time you're done, you're going to have a nice polished back along with it.
Nice. So Wesley asked, is the cab perfectly domed or slight flat on the top?
Domed.
And then Sandy was asking the question about wearing gloves. I saw there's a bunch of conversation in the comments with the gloves. If you're wearing something like nitrile gloves, you can get away with it because the nitrile will tear if it gets hung up on something. But if you were thinking about wearing a cloth or a nylon, type glove, then that becomes much more dangerous, because if it gets caught, the glove will not tear and it will pull you into the machine. Now, cabbing machines aren't terribly dangerous or likely to get pulled into, but as a habit, definitely don't recommend it. It's kind of on the realm of having long hair that's loose around a spinning shaft. If it gets caught on the shaft, it's going to be really ugly. It's not going to be good. So,
or if you're wearing your yoga robes around your machine and you get pulled into it, that would not be good.
Okay.
We just made icons for that about do not wear loose clothing around these machines.
Right.
So
Ron Gall's asking, what's the mixture ratio for the cerium in the water?
I don't really have an exact mixture, a ratio. I usually put.
It looked like about a 1/4 inch in the bottom.
I mean, that was usually enough. I mean, even if you did a little bit more, it's not going to hurt anything. The only thing is you don't want to put too much and then clog the nozzle. Then, it's not going to do you much good. But I mean, you're not going to use that much serum anyway. So, like in a Windex bottle, if you're going to use something like that, maybe put 1/2 inch in there. But every single time that you spray it, you always have to shake it up. You will notice it will settle within like 30 seconds.
right.
Yeah. That was a little trick I learned from Russ here. Is I hadn't seen the trick of putting the serum in the spray bottle. I like that. That's slick. So Steve asked the question, do you wear a mask in the shop, especially when dry sanding?
I wear a mask in the shop no matter what. The N95 has always been the recommended, but we always use the P100. And so at all times, we always
Explain
wear
what
a
a
mask.
explain what the differences are there, Russ.
Well, I mean, essentially, if you read into the numbers, the 95 will knock out 95% of the particles, and the 100 is supposed to be 100% of the particles. You know, a lot of the stones that we cut all have carcinogens in them, whether, you know, Clear Creek plasma agate that has cinnabar, or the beryllium and Tiffany stone. I can go on and on with a long list, but it's stuff that you would never want to breathe in a million lifetimes. And so they all have a certain amount of danger to them. But if you're acting accordingly and safely while doing lapidary, you know, keeping your mask on, I like always wearing eye guards, ear guards, and our aprons. I don't use gloves, never have. You know, it's not really worth it. They would get chewed up in the wheels in a heartbeat. But everything else, yeah, I would always wear a mask.
Yeah. So let's put up the slide on the polishes, and then we'll go to the next video with Ben. But I want to talk a little bit about what I would consider preferred methods of polishing. And basically, you know, you can obviously polish with the diamond resin wheels. And I didn't put that here because that's kind of like built in. You buy the diamond resin wheels, you can polish with them. But if you're working on certain materials that respond to get that super mirror polish, like agates and jaspers, then the cerium on leather is like kind of the go-to. It's in more shops, and for our shop, we probably use that on 95% of what we cut. And then we have a video later showing ZAM on a felt bob for doing kind of softer materials, like turquoise. And then 50,000 diamond. Now we have the next video that we're going to show will show polishing a rhyolite type or dolomite type material. Like the Indian, I know there's, I don't know whether he's here, but there was one of the fellows I ran into this last week on Facebook was trying to get a better polish on some Indian paint stone. And so the next video will help show some of the tricks on that, which is dry polishing. And then Russ and I were talking this week, and he was telling me about the old timers that had mentioned using Colgate toothpaste on obsidian when getting those little scratches that are so notorious to get with a thing like glass. Now, on the canvas, on the 50,000 diamond and canvas, I've used that particularly when I get a difficult material like the Cherry Creek. For a while, I was wandering around the shops here in China buying the best Cherry Creek spheres that were just amazing pattern, but the polish was horrible. And so I was buying them for nothing. And then I'd bring them back to my shop and we'd round them up, and you couldn't polish on cerium. Cerium wouldn't touch them. But we go to 50,000 diamond and put it on canvas. And we were coming off of that with a really amazing polish for something that they believed was unpolishable. And it kind of works on the same concept as the dry polishing, is that we would get that canvas, we would get it with the canvas, we would let it get hot and it would bring it up.
Well, that Australian chrysocolla stuff that we really struggled with, that stuff that we did for.
Oh yeah. It's got malachite and chrysocolla kind of mixed together, and it's beautiful
That is-
material, but gnarly to get that optimal polish.
Right.
So
And that we use canvas on that in 50,000, if I remember correctly.
So the other thing I want to talk about, because I see this conversation all the time on Facebook groups, is what is good cerium? And why I want to talk about that is because people are unclear about what makes cerium a good cerium. Now, what a lot of people have defaulted to is white cerium is good and pink cerium is bad. And that's actually not true. The quality of the cerium has to do with the particulate size of the cerium itself, and the amount of additives that are in it, which could be cheaper stuff that they're kind of doing like a filler. Now, a lot of the quote unquote lapidary grade cerium had just a lot of, as a bigger particle size, and some of it is got a lot more and I can't remember right off the top of my head what the color is coming from, the pink. Some of it was like almost red, but some of that lapidary grade stuff just wouldn't polish at all. Now, what we did is I worked in semiconductor for years, many years. And because of that, I learned a lot of stuff about the technology of polishing stuff, because the first thing they do is polish wafers before they build the chips. So when you're polishing a wafer, then your surface finish has got to be really super. So for semiconductor grade, they make a cerium in both pink and white that are super fine grain. And I could look it up. I don't know the grit size. I see Lori asking. But the performance of that is really the best that I've ever seen. Like, I got this stuff and I won't settle for anything else now, because like in my shop, the amount of time you spend trying to polish a piece, if you've got cheap cerium, it doesn't save you anything. Or if your polish is low grade because you're saved a couple pennies on your cerium. So the cerium we offer both the pink and the white. The white is higher purity, but honestly, in my shop, I run the pink because I can get a mirror finish on the pink. You notice that Russ is running the pink too. You can get, if you got good quality pink, you can get great polish. If you're doing optical pieces, like if you got optical quartz, rutilated quartz, and it's really an important piece, I would buy the white. Either one of them are gonna perform. Let's see. I saw some questions popping up here. When cutting,
There's a question on RPM for cerium on leather. Eric was asking
RPM for cerium on leather. I think I'm running a 12-inch wheel at about 300 RPM, something like that.
You talking bull wheel?
You'll notice, like Russ, the wheel he's working on is running at 1725 RPM, but you'll notice he's working way in on that wheel. He's not at the outer edge, because your surface speed at the outer edge is going to be really fast.
Actually, I got mine on the middle rung, so I've dropped down the speed a little bit from the 17.
Yeah,
so I'm probably running maybe
1200,
maybe 1,000 to 12.
Yeah. It's still very fast. Yeah, and that's why you're moving in closer. Like if I'm working on the outside of a 12-inch wheel, my surface speed is much faster than if I go to close to the middle of the wheel. So, that you can get away with a range of RPMs. It kind of depends on where you choose to work on that wheel. If you work on the very outside of a wheel and you're turning at 1725, you're going to create a ton of heat in your piece and you could get in trouble.
Shoot a bullet across the room.
Yes, launch it. And then it will be featured on a Facebook post of the beautiful Biggs cab broken in half, which none of us want to see, right? So when cutting a slab from a banded piece of rough, banded jasper, have you found it's better to cut perpendicular to the bands, preserve them in the cab, or parallel? Does one direction bring, well, this is kind of a aesthetic choice. It really depends on what you want it to look like. Certainly, you know, having the distinct band is, you know, pleasing to some people. So, you know, it's really a matter of choice. It won't really affect the way you work the stone. It just matters how your finished piece is going to look. So I'm going to pause this on the questions. We got another video here. We're going through our time really fast, which is great. Time flies when you're having fun. So let's go to the video of Ben doing the dendritic. All
right, so here's Ben. He's going to do some Sonoran dendritic rhyolite. And I'm just going to let him go through the process and knock this one out and kind of show you as we go along. Now this particular rhyolite is actually a little bit softer than most, which makes it kind of nice. It's got a good even feel to cab with. It's actually a really good one for beginners, just like Malagano. Quick with this material. Usually in the old time, my original setup, I would have been from the 80 to a 220 steel and I'd be right about where he's at now, except for he's probably 3 steps ahead by using the soft resin wheels with the 60 and the 140 grit, and probably taking, you know, maybe 30% of the time that he would have if it was a 220 wheel, having to go into the 280 after. Process here and start polishing, working on that 280. Probably won't take very long. Normally, in the past, the 280 was the work order. You'd be finished getting all your scratches out at this point, but by using the 60 and the 140, you probably won't have very many scratches at all, except for maybe micro scratches at most. So it kind of streamlines everything. So as you can see, he's ready to move on. So I'm going to go over to the 600 wheel. And actually, in the process of doing Rhyolite, this will be the last one he will do while the water's running.
those bearings again. So basically the questions that people are asking, and I think we need to explain a little bit. This particular video is addressing what technique you use when you're dealing with certain rhyolites, dolomites, and similar type materials that are soft and don't lend themselves to taking a polish easily otherwise.
Jade is also another one. Most people, if they've experienced trying jade for the first time, if you run it through the whole set of wheels with water running, and then you look at the stone at the end, it's like, why is this orange peel? And it doesn't have that mirror polish that I saw at all the shows. It's the same thing. If you cut it off and do it dry, and you do it in slow steps and not let it overheat, it'll polish up and like that.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, like, you can see this when you're watching Ben's hands moving, but Russ, talk a little bit about the pressure on the wheel, how fast you got to keep the stone moving, how you have to avoid creating too much heat. Like, what do you do to avoid too much heat on that stone?
Well, if you're using a dop stick, you want to periodically pull it off, and you want to touch it, and you want to feel where it's at. Make sure, if it's burning your hand, it's obviously too hot. And, as you sit there and let the air cool it down, the chance of having it develop cracks is getting greater. For us, using our hands to cab them, you're going to feel it. You got that automatic temperature setting in there, because you're going to feel the stone in your hands, if it's getting too hot or not. If it's starting getting hot, let it dry a little, or, just let it cool a little bit, go in for some more, pull it back, and, just take your time. But as you can see, we only went to the 1200. We could have went to the 14,000 and did a little bit more dry, but generally speaking, you probably don't even have to go any further. Yeah. It really goes quick. It really does. Most of these materials, these rhyolites, like what he was doing with the Sonoran dendritic, it's a softer stone to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, right. You really don't have to go that far.
So basically, to answer Larry Ott's questions, this is only a technique to use on these difficult materials. Agates and jaspers, you would not want to run them dry. Opals, it's death. You want them wet. And then speak to turquoise. What's your process for polishing turquoise? Is this our segue into our ZAM?
Turquoise is always ZAM. I would never heat up turquoise ever doing it dry. Always keep that with the wheels running wet at all times. And then ZAM is great for turquoise. I wouldn't suggest anything else but it.
All right, let's do our ZAM video.
All right, so I'm going to use a little ZAM here with the cordless Dremel, and I'm going to use a piece of Wyoming blizzard stone. Now this is basically comprised of limestone and quartz, and it usually will polish, but it doesn't really get a mirror polish with just the 14,000. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put it on the very lowest setting and just get a little bit on there. It doesn't take much. If you put it on high speed, you're going to get ZAM everywhere. Now I'm going to kick it up to high speed, and you're going to start seeing that shine really quick. It's just taking a mirror polish. it doesn't take very long. You want to keep the tip moving at all times. You don't want to heat any part of the stone too much and get it to fracture. But now you can see a bit of the difference.
So that's Lori asked what kind of Dremel bit that is. That's a felt bob, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So let's see. Well, we're at the hour. Let's see whether we got any questions. Nobody's got their hand up. And Beverly's asking about ZAM staining lighter colored stones. What's your experience with that, Russ?
You know, I don't know if I've actually seen it stain. Sometimes when you add a polish to certain materials, I've seen it maybe get like I've seen some turquoises where they were maybe lower grade, you know, where they're more porous. And so usually that's the lighter of the blues. When you put a polish to it, it starts to deepen that blue ever so slightly. That's the only thing. I don't know about staining. I've never come across too much of that myself.
Yeah, well, I will speak to a little bit of that because I looked at the MSDS on ZAM, and basically what ZAM is you got like a chromium oxide, and there was something else in it, and it has the core component of it is wax. So you're basically when you do polish certain stones, you can have some of that wax actually get into a porous stone, which is part of what brings it up. But it's fairly accepted as a type of polish in the market. But the potential is, in my opinion, that with when you got wax, if you're not really bringing up the polish and you're just getting some wax in it, then the polish can decrease over time.
We've seen that for some of the goods done overseas, as they'll use a wax.
It's a classic Chinese gimmick where they basically they'll dip entire batches of beads in wax, and they'll look really shiny, and then you have them for about 6 months and they start dulling up. So certainly I'm more sensitive to that as a solution, because I've seen, some of those tricks over here. But I mean, if you're polishing turquoise and it's a good stable stone, you're not doing something that's going to be detrimental to the stone using ZAM.
There's a question that Simply Rock asked is, can you name a few other softer stones where dry polishing would be preferred? For instance, what about lapis, he's asking?
I actually have experimented with lapis, and I've got different results with doing it at times, because lapis seems to be a little bit temperamental for using heat. We've got some really, really good results from doing it, and we've managed to get some heat fractures through it. Yeah. So, I think maybe out of the experimental portion of it, we may have just hit it with too much heat. But again, we've had some really great results from doing lapis with it. Some of the other ones that I know, Apache, Rhyolite, and Arena.
Dumortierite.
Yeah, actually, Dumortierite's a really good one, because that one's a really stubborn one to get any kind of polish.
How about, have you ever tried like the Lapidary?
No, actually, usually that polishes up really well with going up to the 14,000, or sometimes we'll even use a 50,000 diamond wheel on the machine as well.
Hey, Eric's got his hand up. Eric Rando, if I'm saying your last name right, why don't we bring Eric up? Hey there, Eric. What's your question?
Well, it's a little bit off topic in that I'm watching this on cabbing to just kind of gain knowledge about lapidary. But one of the things that occurred to me, I have no interest in doing cabicons ever. I have a saw and I have a VibraLap. I didn't buy yours because yours was too big and too expensive. Mine was expensive but not as big, and I couldn't use something that big. But on some of your polishing techniques, I was listening, like with Rhyolite, that you use different techniques for that. I was wondering if you could have a similar seminar, or maybe have some information on how you would polish on a flat lap.
Yeah, the dynamics
things.
are different, and the techniques because of that are different.
Right.
And we got into flat lapping here. I don't know. It's been about 4 years ago when we started putting it into our factory.
It's actually,
and I started building these big flat laps. And what I really learned is that a lot of the techniques that, I know a lot from polishing spheres over the years. And so some of the tricks I had there wouldn't work on flat laps as well, because the dynamics of the mechanical process are different.
Because normally they describe just a general way how to do things.
Say that again?
Normally the procedures that I've read and seen in videos on using a flat lap is that they just basically say start off with rough grit and work your way up, and then you'll be polished. But hearing this on how you react to different stones, I found that to be a new angle for me, at least.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to look and see about doing a webinar on flat polishing.
We could actually do that potentially, maybe with Andres. Is he running R1Ms there?
Yeah, he's got 6 of them.
So we could run that potentially with him in Mexico, because he's been doing flat polishing of a lot of the lagunas and things like that. This material. So Eric, we'll definitely be watching for that, because I think that would be a real good thing for us to be doing. And we may also then pick up flat polishing with bull wheel as well.
Yeah, because there's wet polishing and dry polishing on flat laps too, and the dynamics are very different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to take you off topic, but then
no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had another question here. Richard was asking, what is super cerium? And this is kind of one of those lapidary terms. And why don't you speak to that a little bit? John, you want to speak?
Well, with cerium, it really, we really have 2 grades of cerium that we consider, which has to do with the size of the particles and the purity of the cerium. It's like anything else. If you have something that is more pure, that it takes work, it takes processing to get it there. So, and then the problem is if you go and shop cerium in the lapidary market, everybody is going to say optical or super or something like that, and they have no idea what makes their cerium any better than anything else. I didn't want to source anything out of lapidary because of that reason, because there's not really a whole lot of science involved in the lapidary distribution of those kind of materials. So that's why we sourced ours out of semiconductor.
Yep.
Because that's a really, really controlled market. So from my supply base, if I buy cerium, I know it's exactly the same every single time. Because if it's not the same, they're out of business, because the semiconductor guys will just destroy them as a supplier.
Right. There were some questions about other kinds of polish, like tin oxides, aluminum oxides, things like that.
So I don't want to necessarily discount them as polishes, and Russ, you may have something to say about this. The reason I didn't really want to get into talking about tin oxide or aluminum oxide in this is that, again, 95% of the stuff that people cut can be polished on leather and cerium. 95%. So for the people that are getting started, that's where to focus. If you mess around and try and save money and buy aluminum oxide or tin oxide, you're just going to get frustrated because it's not going to perform very well. If you want to be successful, get the cerium oxide, go to the leather buff, and you're going to get great results pretty fast. Now, having said that, the 5% of stuff, when people are working a beautiful piece that they are trying to get a polish on and the piece is fighting them, then everybody wants to talk about the tricks and the techniques. And I think what we'll do is, I got to talk to Russ and some of my other colleagues in this and see whether we could put together more background on difficult materials and how people have solved that, because it's interesting to people. Like, certainly why we covered polishing some of the softer stones and some of the basic techniques for that is that it is interesting to people to figure out how to solve those and produce a great stone out of something that, it's beautiful, but it's unwilling to take a polish. So that's really where we'll focus for today's conversation, at least. But obviously our intent is to do these webinars long-term so we can bring that kind of knowledge and information and share it, and not have this be like the rock club with the old guy who knows something and he won't tell anybody, and then he dies, and then now everybody else has got to try and figure it out all over again, which is stupid. Like, we should share that knowledge so that the lapidary hobby grows and more people can come in and be successful.
Yeah. One of the things, I want to have you, Joanna, put back up that the special deal for the folks that are on the call here. Can you put that up? The cabbing, the trim saw deal. We're going to do that through Monday, the trim saw combination. So that saves you $100. And you can either do it on the web or call in. We wanted to, the folks that are on here are the folks that we want to kind of give you guys opportunity and first crack at stuff. And really, the folks that keep showing up, we want to give you as much value as possible. And certainly one of the things that we're also keen on, and I have a question for you to people put in the chat. I've had some people ask me, like, how do I sell my stuff? How do I promote? And Russ, I don't know if you're comfortable talking a little bit about, the success, like say Ben's had, I don't know if you want to speak to that, because that's very inspiring to me.
Well, where would you want to start with that?
Well, here he is. He's how old? 18 years old, right? 18, 19?
Yeah. 18.
And he's making cabs and he's selling cabs pretty successfully.
Yeah. There's so many places now. When I got started, there was very little on social media. There was a few groups here and there, none of which really had sales. So if you were going to do it, you're going to, figure out a way to attract attention to yourself one way or another and get exposure. That's why I developed the group cabs and slabs. So essentially people can congregate and, have lapidary discussions and learn from each other, meet people of, same interests and have a lot of fun with it. And also have a place to sell. So, a few of us who are running the group, the admins, we would have a couple days set aside in the middle of the week where we would run auctions, and then we'd open up the group for the public and give everybody a shot to week in and week out being able to post their stuff, which for someone like Ben, he had somebody with hands-on experience next to him at all time, and not everybody will have that availability to them. Originally, I started off in a shop, one of the clubs in Menlo Park at the Sequoia Rock and Gem Society. And there's a lot of great people there. Everybody was super helpful, and they'll run you through it from start to scratch, and then kind of set you off on your own to find your own way, but not just kind of like dump and run and throw you to the wolves. It's more of they're there if you need help, but more of let you kind of feel your way around and find where your comfortability is, and from there, like use Ben, for instance. Facebook was always a good place to watch the different groups and watch the different people posting stuff, because you get the chance to see different cuts. You get the chance to see all the different materials and learn about them and where they're from, which is, where I get a great deal of fun doing the article month after month in Rock and Gem is I may have cut the stone and know where it came from, but doing an article and I get to go and actually either interview the claim owner or do a lot of research on it and learn a lot more about the material and usually find a really good story behind it too, which is more of a draw to me in having fun in what I'm doing. And I really like seeing the younger crowd come up. So, Lapidary really is something I think in the past that I always saw the older crowd into. You kind of always saw it in like the senior citizen centers. I'm really enjoying the fact that I'm seeing a whole new wave of younger people getting into it, and
we're seeing that
styles.
Certainly, people coming in.
Yeah, it's great seeing it, and all the different styles too. You could think back even only 20 years and you'd see a million ovals, and it's like, okay, I mean, a lot of material, but a lot of ovals. And now you're seeing utilization of druzy, crystal caps, all kinds of stuff being used in their designing of their cabochons. It's great seeing, all the new things being done day in and day out. And, and following along on Facebook or Instagram, every year after year, like Indonesia, they'll, out of nowhere, here comes Malagano. And took Lapidary by storm. And it was a great material. And then you see all these new ones being found all the time, where you might not see if you're sitting out in, Indiana somewhere where they're not really in a rock territory or around any rock shows. So having the ability to, utilize social media to, bring focus to yourself, being able to add to conversations, getting exposure, trying out new things and posting them and see how well they do. It's a lot of fun, whether you're a hobbyist or whether you get it.
And you're doing this full time, right?
Yeah, I'm doing it full time. I originally was a paralegal that I was going to the club once a week, and I was posting every Friday in my group, but I was only posting, between 10 and 15 cabs. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take long to where, trial and error. If I'm running 15 cabs one week, can I run 20? Will 25 sell? And then it just got to the point where I'm selling enough I can get away from the other and just do this. And why not? I thoroughly enjoy it so much more.
Yep. Well, and one of the things that I have a question of for the people that are here is I've had some people saying, hey, can you talk more about how do you sell online? How do you market online? Some of the technology side of that. And I just want to see from like a response, like right in the chat, tech, if you want to learn more about what's the technology and how do you sell on, say, the different channels, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or Etsy, or doing your own websites and, building a customer base. I've had some people interested in that. If you guys are interested in it, put in the word tech, TECH. So then we know we should think about doing a program.
So people, yeah.
And there we go, Bill. Because for us, we're pretty good on selling online. We've learned a lot to how to do it, and
they're pretty good at selling online.
and so, we want to share that knowledge because we really see a real resurgence of lapidary, and that a lot of creativity. I mean, I saw Craig in here. I think I just shipped you a shaping machine, if I'm not correct. I know I just got one in. It went out, I think it went out to Craig. So there's a lot of guys that are like really going into production. So we certainly want to help you figure out some of those technical ends that sometimes may be a little bit intimidating about how do I actually do the marketing and how do I start building that? And certainly, Russ, I mean, you've done a great job with your Facebook groups. I mean, how many folks do you have on your groups combined?
Well over 50,000.
Yeah.
So, when we first started out, we combined a little of everything with slabs, cabochons, and jewelry. And the traffic actually got so great, so quick that I ended up splitting them off a little bit. So there is one whole group that's just for rough and slabs. The main group is stayed for selling cabs. And then we have one for the jewelry artists themselves. And then since there seems to be such a unique niche with turquoise in itself, we open up the turquoise emporium as well. That seems to be a whole world in its own. So,
yeah. Speaking of that,
Well,
John,
great.
we got
Well,
those
listen,
buckets of turquoise that we bought.
We're a fair amount over, but I really want to acknowledge the time and the effort that you put into this, Russ. I really appreciate you spending the time with us and your commitment to helping us bringing more education for the lapidary arts. And I encourage everyone that's here to check out Russ's groups and his sites, and hopefully we'll be doing some more stuff together, because obviously Russ comes into this with a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge, and it's really great that he's sharing with everybody here.
Yeah. Well, great, guys. Well, let's go ahead and call it a wrap for this evening. And what's up for next week, John? I know we've been working on some topics.
It's not confirmed yet.
Okay, we're working on getting some confirmation. As soon as we're confirmed, we'll be sending out messages to folks on what's coming up, and definitely tell your friends like what we have here. If you like this, tell other people. It's free. I mean, people just need to sign up and then they'll get the link. So we definitely would like to invite you to have other folks join so that really people can benefit from this. So with that, we'll call it a night tonight. You all have a great weekend. Thank you again, Russ. Thank you, Ben. And thanks, John. And anything else we want to cover here, John, before we wrap?
No, that's good. Thanks everybody for coming.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So tonight is indeed a very interactive and helpful session for everyone. So again, the team wanted to thank Russ Kaniuth and also to Ben Kaniuth for sharing to us their time and expertise. We really appreciate you guys. Do not hesitate again to give us your feedback and suggestions and recommendations. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys to our next webinar. Good night.